How are we all doing, everyone? Thank you very much for tuning into my latest video. I really appreciate it, and thanks for everyone that continues to contact me. I really appreciate that as well. And anyone I've not gotten back to yet, I'll be back in contact with you at some point this week. So obviously in this video I'm going to discuss Labour's plans for digital ID cards, because I know they've said they've rejected it, but they are going to try and introduce this. Because when Tony Blair's on the scene, and I've said this many times over the years, when he's in the scene, if he thinks something's good, you need to be of the opposing view from that man, because he is a war criminal. He's a criminal, a war criminal. He's involved. He's been involved in some pretty serious stuff, but because he's a prime minister, he gets away with it. Now there's worse, of course there is, but he's bad enough. And he led the left for 10 years in this country, and mass immigration actually started it started in 1945, but under his tutelage, and from 1997, you look at the percentages and how it increased from 97 onwards, and then he tried to introduce ID cards in 2005. If you remember in 2015, the infamous bloody crocodile tears when the transcripts came out from the Iraq war about weapons of mass destruction, and he said, "Oh, I was only doing my job," and they blacked out a lot of the transcripts as well because they didn't want you to see what was really being said. But he had to put on his crocodile tears to get everyone to believe that he was just doing his job, and some people bought that. I certainly did not. So when you see him on the fringes of Keir Starmer, you know it's bad, and you know the agenda is at play, because he is the elite's man. He is the cult's man. There's the death cult that runs this. I mean, look at his eyes. Just look at his eyes. They never change. Like, it's just pure evil all the way. And then we see I've seen some photos of him that are chilling. They chill you to the bone. So when he's in the fringes introducing digital ID cards as a way to control mass migration, you can now see why mass migration hasn't been dealt with competently, because they don't want to deal with it competently, because they need to use it to manufacture people's consent into saying yes. Well, we don't really want these digital ID cards, love, but we're going to have to stop these immigrants coming in. The truth of the matter is this: they're still going to keep coming whether they've got an ID tracker in them or not. And it is going to go to the microchip as well. It's going to be, it really is, it'll be accelerated very quickly. And if you look back to actually 2015, when it became mandatory to get your pets done, which is fair enough. I mean, you're not going to lose your dog or your cat or whatever, that's fine. But it wasn't going to be long before they started to say, well, it's just a stepping stone. It's worked so well because she's never done losing cats before, and now she never loses cats. So you can do that with your children. Then when everybody consents to doing their children, before you know it, you've got legislation or a mandate to say, well, actually we need everybody microchipped, and then there's another box of the dystopian agenda ticked. Now that starts with a step again. They pretty much know things aren't going to work first time. They knew the digital ID cards weren't going to work in 2005. But they'll keep trying, and they'll keep trying, and they'll keep trying to introduce it, and they'll keep using the same people, which is why Tony Blair's on the bloody fringes. Now, if you can remember a few years ago when the infamous transcripts from the Iraq war and his communications with George Bush came out, and he put his acting skills, his bad acting skills to play, because that's what they are, he started performing his crocodile tears because he knew the game was up. He knew he didn't look good in those transcripts, even though most of it was blacked out. So when I see Tony Blair and he's advocating for something, I need to be of the opposite opinion, and that goes with anything. I mean, if he told me to eat wholemeal bread, a particular brand of wholemeal bread, I would spend at least 3 hours researching that brand. That's how much I don't trust that man, because he is a war criminal, there's no doubt about it. And he knew there was no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. He knew Afghanistan and Osama bin Laden had absolutely nothing to do with 9/11. It's a provable fact. I'm thinking about doing a video on it, but I mean, it's been a long time since that happened. There's obviously more going on, but anyway, this is all triggers. These are all triggers. I mean, you look at the world on September the 10th, 2001, and then compare it to September the 11th, 2001, and you'll see the difference. So much happened during that, and he was aware of most of it. Robin Cook, is it Robin Cook? I can't remember his name. The guy that was in the Labour politician that was in, he was in Tony's cabinet, and he exposed it to say that they knew there was no weapons of mass destruction, and he was killed. David Kelly, was that him? I can't remember his name, but I'm terrible with names in these videos, I really am. I forget things I should remember. I'm sure somebody will put it into the comments. But he was found dead after basically saying that there was no weapons of mass destruction. Now, people have been saying for years there was no weapons of mass destruction. It still fell in deaf ears. They still kept ticking off the countries that were on the project for the new American century. And people often say to me, Alan, you're an idiot for believing 9/11 was an inside job. And I asked them this one question: can you tell me what the project for the new American century was? And they don't know. And it's like, look mate, you shouldn't really be commenting on 9/11 if you've not read that document. And until you do, I would advise you to keep your mouth shut, because you're just going to embarrass yourself. But this is all in the plan, and it's all down to them. They have to tell you these things. And this is why they'll use the same people, because they know these people are loyal to them, because they've got skeletons in their closet. Tony Blair certainly has. I seen a documentary a few years back. In fact, it was 10 years ago now. It was called Jimmy Savile and the Ninth Circle, and it's since been removed from YouTube. I mean, you can still get parts of it, but the full thing, there was 2 parts to it. The second one, it got removed, and there's some really disturbing stuff in it about him, like... and this is the man that was Prime Minister that was supposed to lead the left, the libertarians, the people that are supposed to look after people and have compassion and empathy. With his crocodile bloody tears. I mean, have you ever seen any pictures of him? When he's putting on his crocodile tears, his eyes never change, and the smile, it's like something out the bloody Grinch or something. But anyway, this digital ID has been... it's been the agenda for these people for a very long time. I mean, if David Icke was laughed at, he was laughed out of the bloody country nearly in the 1990s for saying that. And yet, look, and I know, Labour have said, look, we're not interested in that just now, but of course they're going to bloody say that, because this is how the mind game works. This is how they manufacture the bloody consent. Migration needs to be stopped. I don't want to be bloody tracked by an ID card, but we need to stop these migrants. Stop these migrants by putting a bloody competent government in there. You don't stop migrants by voting Keir Starmer, which the vast majority of people, and I'll say it's as high as 75%, only voted for him because he wasn't Rishi Sunak. That's the only reason they voted for this man. It's the only reason he's in bloody office, is because Rishi Sunak just happened to be his bloody competitor, or his opponent. And it's the dystopian world. It is one reason for the migration, because people are getting really worried about this now, and I'm not saying they shouldn't. I mean, we're having it in this area now, in the largest town closest to here, where they're starting to see a lot more foreign nationals coming in, and they're starting to treat women badly. It's a fact, and it's happening all over the country. Now, we are obviously, the vast majority of us are obviously up in arms about that. We don't want it happening. We want our people kept safe. We want our children kept safe. But if you step up and say that, you're a racist. But this is how they're going to manufacture it, because they're going to, the more people that bloody do that, the better. Because the more chance it is, people will only give up their freedom and security if they're in fear. Fear is the currency of control. So the more immigrants that come in, the more criminals that come in, the better. The more havoc and chaos they cause, the better. Because order comes out of chaos. Because that's how they manufacture the consent. Because people get so bloody scared, they're left with no choice but to say, well, actually, we're going to have to do this. And they don't need a lot of people to consent to that before it ends up like a COVID situation where you've got half of the population, more even, that are basically ostracising the people that are trying to say, well, hold on a second here, there's something not right. And every time we watch these dystopian movies like Equilibrium or 1984 or whatever it is, we're always on the side of the resistance. Always, 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 always. So why can't we do that in real life? Because people are scared. Because it's real life. It's not just sitting watching a movie. But what happens in the movie, that's what's going to happen in real life. Or what would happen in the movie if the resistance wasn't there. That's what's really going to happen. And we really do need to start getting wise to this, and saying no at all costs, regardless of what immigration is. And again, I don't know how to fix that problem. I genuinely don't. But one thing I will say is that if you're coming from a country that's not war-torn, regardless of any human rights, you should not be allowed entry into this country. Unless you go through the channels you used to go through, visas and stuff like that, working visas, which is fine. But the vast majority of them are not here to work. But the more that come, the better, because the more chaos they're going to bring. And the more chaos they bring, the more we get scared. Women and children especially. And I'm not saying they shouldn't be. I'm not saying we should be scared of every single person that comes from these countries. That's not what I'm saying. But there is some bad people coming here. And you can see some of them have been jailed, like some of them have done some terrible things. And then you look at James Timson, who's the man that's Keir Starmer's appointed him for, I can't remember the exact title, but to deal with the prisons and stuff like that. And he claims that a third of the people who are in jail shouldn't be in jail. It's a third, that's 33.3% of people that are in jail shouldn't be. Now, I would agree, there will be people in jail that probably shouldn't be there. Somebody that's been caught with maybe, I don't know, a kilo of weed or something like that, they shouldn't be in jail. They just shouldn't be. But there's many people in there that are doing sentences for stupid things like that. Longer sentences, might I add, than some people that have got crimes against children. But that's another box ticked for the agenda, because I've been hearing for bloody years that they wanted to defund the police, so more crime on the streets for reasons I've just explained. The jails are overrun with petty criminals, which means that they need to be more lenient. And yet, here we've got the guy that's just been elected, or his pal's just been elected, and he's put him into a job to oversee the bloody prison system, and he's saying a third of people shouldn't be in there. At the same time, they're defunding the police. I mean, any police will tell you they're defunding it, and there's just not enough of them to fight all this crime. So they're taking away resources from the police while allowing more immigration to come in. And then if they scrap this two-child benefit cap, we're in big trouble, like, because it's just going to blow. It's going to blow, like, because they're going to be like, well, we need to get in there very quickly, because once they scrap that, it's going to get even worse and worse and worse. So the people that aren't here, that when they find that out, they're going to be pulling out all the stops to get here as quickly as they can, because they know it'll have a finite life. It will get shut down eventually, but it will open the floodgates also. Which is, I mean, they're open anyway. And we need to hold this man accountable, because he is not the man that's going to bring Britain back to glory, Keir Starmer. In fact, he's going to be the man he'll probably end up causing some kind of civil war or some kind of revolution, hopefully of consciousness, for people to say, well, hold on a second, actually, in that last election I didn't really have a choice. I mean, I've heard he's already suspended 7 Labour. I don't know if it's true or not, like, it was just something I'd read somewhere, I can't remember. He's already responded 7 bloody Labour MPs because they've voted against scrapping the two-child benefit cap, because it's logical. There's no way, I've said it before, we need to get control of these borders before that can be scrapped, because if we don't, it will open up the floodgates, and if you think it's bad now for crossings, it'll just get 10 times worse. And it's going to keep getting worse, and things are starting to flare up in streets now. You had the Leeds riots last week. You've got things that are on in Dublin. It's been going on for a very, very long time. And I said a few months ago when I did a video on it about Rishi Sunak and his policies, try to send them to Ireland shores, which wasn't fair, because we all need to kind of stick together and remind these people that we're not stopping you from coming in because we're racist. We're stopping you from coming in because the people that are already here, there's too many of them, and British nationals, and people, not even just British nationals, people that have been here for a very long time, maybe from another country that have maybe been here since 1997, they're not going to be able to get the services that they require either. No one can. I mean, I know in smaller rural areas, it's not so bad just now, certainly here, but that will change. I mean, I've seen again, no problem with it, but in the local supermarket, there was about 30 Vietnamese. Now, the Vietnam War finished in the 60s or the 70s, whenever it was, so I'm not sure why they need to come here. It's like, well, what's the reason for you coming here? because you're not in war. So what's going on? Is it? I don't know. Maybe there's something I don't see there that they want to get away from. I don't know, but I still don't see why they can come here. But yet, when I need to go somewhere, or if I want to go to a country and do that, not me or any of you watching this cannot do that. We need to we would need to get a job. We would need to save up our money, which is getting even more difficult to do. We would need to go through all the process, working visas, blah blah blah, and then we would get to go. Why is that different for us? And they use this bloody sad excuse that we're the fathers of democracy and all the rest of it. And it's like democracy it doesn't even mean what you think it does. It's actually slavery posing as freedom, if you ask me. Because we're not free at all. Because if we were, we would have had more of a choice than Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer. But this is the card we've been dealt. It is what it is. This is where we're at. And we all have to take responsibility for this world, me included. Because over the last 10 years, I've sort of been more aware of things. The 10 year prior to that, I certainly wasn't. In fact, I couldn't have cared less about. I mean, if this had been happening in 2007 and you'd brought this to me, I wouldn't have cared. And I don't mind throwing my hands up and saying that. And I was 20 years old at the time. That's fine. If that's what you want to do, and just sort of brush it off. But things are different now, and there ain't no two ways about it. And we are at a serious crossroads. We're at the point of no return. Unless, I don't know, but the thing is, like, it's when you look at the violence on Leeds and in Dublin and places like that, you just think it's going to keep getting worse. There's no doubt about it. And I'm sitting here saying violence as a means of conflict resolution it doesn't work. But then at the same time, sometimes people are left with no choice. And I'm not advocating for violence because it doesn't solve anything. But I can understand when tempers flare and people get angry. And I mean, I've had a rough couple of weeks. Just not in the sense where I'm struggling or anything like that, but just with dealing with your emotions. Really, it can be quite difficult. And it's not that bad here, so I can only imagine what it must be like in places like Dublin. They're creating ghettos, and people actually misunderstand the definition of a ghetto. They think it's about poverty, which is an aspect of it, but it's a segregated community or a segregated people. Like for example, the Jewish segregation in the Second World War. It was just because they were segregated as a Jewish community it's called a ghetto. That's the definition of it, and it does breed poverty. There's no doubt about it. So we're having sort of states within states now. When you look at sort of the Muslim population, I've got nothing against the Muslim population. I've had some great conversations with Muslims. In fact, some of the best people I've ever met have been Muslims, and that's not what I mean. Like I've not got anything against them, but when people start coming in from these Islamic countries and then they start segregating themselves away from the bloody population because they don't like what your colour your flag is or what colour your skin is or your religion or whatever it is, then that's a problem, because it's like, well, why do you want to be here? I don't understand that. Why is it you want to come here? If you don't like me, you don't like what I've been brought up in, you don't seem to like anyone else. You've segregated yourself off in this tenting community. Anyone comes near it and we're basically being treated like we would if we came to your country and done that. That's wrong. It's like, you can't come into this bloody country and start shouting about, well, it's my human right to be here, and then abusing other people's human rights. Because that means that you've discarded your right to be here. You've got no right to be here. You can't use human rights to come in and then abuse human rights when you're in. It doesn't work like that, but that's what so many of them are doing, and they think they've got the right to do it. Because some of these Sharia law or the rest of it, they treat their women like second-class citizens, and I don't care what anybody thinks of me, they're not welcome here. Because it's... See, the thing is, truth and decency and freedom, it's like they're all one package. Evil, tyranny, all that stuff, that's all one package. You can't be in the middle of it. You're either on one side of it or you're either the other. I know which side I'm on. I picked it 10 years ago and I'll go all the way with it. It's why I've done this bloody channel. It's why I've given up my job, in which I'm finding it difficult to get some employment now because of that, certainly in this area, which, fair enough, it's not that big a deal, but it just shows you that not everyone appreciates truth and honesty. even though you would think that they did, and on the face of it, you would expect them to. But if we say no to anything, people, it's to this digital ID nonsense. And I know they've not said yes to it, but they will, because that is the agenda. It is a dystopian society. They want a social credit system. And anyone that slagged me off at the start of this when I started talking like this, saying that, oh, that social credit system in China doesn't exist, it's bullshit. It does exist. It bloody does. That's why they kicked it. That's why everything's made in China. COVID was made in China, not the actual virus, but the concept of it. That's why they wanted to bring it here. That's why it started there, because that is the bloody culture they want here. They want everybody used to that stuff, and I'm sorry, but I will die defending freedom. Like, I've got no problem doing that. I've accepted it. If that's what needs to happen, that's what needs to happen. Obviously, that's not going to happen, but I'm just saying that's how strongly I feel about it. We all need to feel that strongly about it, because, like I said before, in the bloody dystopian movies, we're all with resistance, but why not in real life? And I know people are scared, but see the more people that come together and say, right, well, we're not going to get on it with everything, but at least we can agree that we want people to have truth and freedom and a decent life, and to be able to set their own challenges without having a bloody authoritarian government doing it for them, because that's what's going to happen. And this is where with the transgender stuff that comes into it as well. And there's a saying that if you can get people to believe absurdities, you'll get them to commit atrocities. World War II, believing the Jews that were responsible for the world's troubles then, and then they got them to commit the atrocities because it was an absurdity. And it's the same with men and women being the same, or no, women don't exist, whatever it is they're saying, that is an absurdity. And the people that are running it are absurd. The people that follow it are absurd. And if they got their way, and they could then call the shots with regards to what happened with gender, I would be first to the ovens, and they would have no problem doing it because they believed in absurdity. They'll commit an atrocity because they believe, like, I'm an infidel or whatever it is, and you're a threat to truth and freedom. It's like, no, you're a threat to truth and freedom, and the fact that you can't bloody see that is frightening. And anyone that's advocating for these digital ID cards, there are people that used to stay in Malta or something that had them, and it's like, I don't really care, like, I'm not really bothered how well they thought it worked. That's not what this is about. If we lived in a perfect world where it was just about making sure children were safe and weren't being stolen, fine, but it's not about that. It's about the microchip. It's, again, getting your pets done, it's just the stepping stone. It's to manufacture the consent. And I'm not ruling out there's going to be some bloody event where they'll need to say, right, see, no, this migration needs to be curtailed here, and we need these ID cards, because that's what they're using. This is why they're letting it happen, because they're using it. Because do not be surprised if something unforeseen happens in the next few months to try and manufacture your consent into saying, yes, I'll take one of those cards. But please, people, be on guard. Go research China, research the social credit system, have a look at what's going on in those countries, please, because it is what they want to bring here. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind. And then when you start seeing Keir Starmer talking, saying, well, we're not sure yet, but by the way, I was talking to Tony Blair before the bloody election just to see how he dealt with it. We don't know what goes on behind closed doors with those people. But if you watch the Netflix show House of Cards, it gives you a fair idea, because that was actually written by people that used to be in politics. They consulted on it to make it as authentic as possible. And the way they speak about us behind closed doors compared to the way it is in the camera, I can assure you, is very different. Very, very different. So when they're smiling with their crocodile tears on one podium, they are laughing at you behind the bloody scenes. And that's just the way it is. It's the way it's always been, until we realise that and wake up and face it and start growing up and taking responsibility for the ills of this bloody world. Instead of saying, well, I didn't vote. Doesn't matter, mate. It doesn't matter. I had nothing to do with me. It's your ignorance that contributes to it. And each time someone comes across and says, well, this is actually what I think's happening because I've researched it, the venom that comes out of some people's mouth and the anger at nothing more than an opinion should show you that you're in a darker place, that you realise if you're getting angry at an opinion, that's merely information that someone's sort of relayed to you, if you're getting angry about that, you're in a darker place than you realise. Because you've been socially programmed, and what's really bad about that, you don't even know it, which is why you're getting angry, because your subconscious is reminding you of it. So you'll know anyone, if you say an opinion or post an opinion or whatever, and someone starts getting, I've had it for years. I've had people having to apologise to me for it, for coming out with an opinion one night if they've been in a bad mood. Then I'd go to their house a few nights later or whatever, and they'd have to apologise because they felt bad after it, and so they should have, because it was nothing more than information. And some of the venom I used to get from people from having nothing more than a different opinion. All that has to stop. This is why this bloody control system's at our door. It's why it is literally at our door now. Because so many people do not want to hear it. Now, I'm sorry you don't. I didn't want to hear it, but it was tough for me and it's tough for you, because if we don't hear it, there's more chance of this dystopian society coming to fruition. Then it'll not matter. Then it won't. Nothing will matter, because people like me will not be here to speak the truth, because again we will be seen as the enemy. So that's where we're at with this. And these digital ID cards is the first stage of that. The first stage of the last play. That's what I'll call this. Yeah, it's very concerning. Watch out for the headlines when they say, actually, we might need to consider this, or watch for the event because something will happen. Thank you very much for tuning into this latest video. I've got a couple coming as well. I'm taking a lot more time in researching them. It'd be much better. The videos will come back a lot better quality. I won't forget as many things. I have had a lot in my mind recently. It can't always be perfect, can it? So, thank you very much for everyone that continues to follow me. Honestly, I really appreciate it, and your kind words. They keep me going. So many people, Andrew, thank you, that contact me, Nikoi. Every time I do a video, and it just keeps you going. So I just want to say how much I appreciate those people. Thank you very much. Enjoy your day, and I'll see you in the next one.